on boats and daisy chains. Can't seem to recall my true given name. I see my footprints, how they come, how they go. Was that yesterday or only a moment ago? My heart is gone. I've gone cold. My heart is gone.
Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast number 80.
Number 80.
So you hear that, folks? That beautiful, sultry voice minus the Bruce Hornsby?
We're all going to miss Dave today. And you know people are going to say, where's Dave? Where's Bruce Hornsby?
You know where Dave is? Dave decided, instead of coming on this podcast, it was more important for him to go on a vacation with his family.
Well, I don't feel sorry for him at all. Like, where is he?
Somewhere really warm and really sunny and really beautiful.
I guess we can say we don't feel sorry for him one bit.
No. Vacation with the family, warm, sunny, and beautiful. From what I can see on Facebook, he's swimming with dolphins. He's doing all sorts of beautiful things, and we're stuck here working.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, seriously. And we're Hornsby free. It's probably the only good part of all this.
I was going to say maybe it's a positive. I know we're going to hear about it later, but, we'll just count our blessings as is.
Now, the sad part is we're ping free also.
That I am sad about. Where is Ping today? Is she off in the wild somewhere?
She was off shooting things and winning all sorts of awards. Like, she won this big medal. She held her title for last year. But now she came back from that and, just had to play catch up. So it's just you and me. You and me, Em.
Fear us.
Yes. This may be the most succinct, focused podcast we've ever done.
Epic.
That's what we're promising you. Now we have to actually live up to it. So let's talk about last podcast. We talked that we had our first MLSE class, and we said we were either going to never speak of it again, or we would be singing its praises from the mountaintops. Which one did we decide on?
I guess we're singing its praises, although actually I'm still in recovery. I think I suspect you are too.
Man, it's the craziest class I think I've ever heard of anywhere. And I'm not just saying that.
Yeah, I think I'm still in blackout mode from it. I keep getting these flashbacks, but I think the students had a good time and I think they learned a lot. So I guess we can call it a success.
Yeah, I mean, some of the reviews were things like epic, brain numbing, the hardest week they've ever had, the most fun they've ever had. Just some great reviews. And I don't want to give too much away, but I will tell you, it is basically a week-long live SE pen test engagement with every aspect: phishing, vishing, impersonation, breaking in, everything you can imagine. It's awesome. So,
and I'll tell you, it really wouldn't have been the same without the students. I think we had a great, incredible first batch of students.
They set the bar high.
They really did.
It was so awesome. At the end of the class, we went out to dinner as a class. And these guys and gals did something I never expected. They bought us gifts. I mean, is that ridiculous or what?
Yeah, I was actually a little bit appalled at how nice they were.
I mean, we abused them all week. We tortured them, and we made them pay a lot of money for it, and then they bought us gifts. I have a 32-year-old scotch sitting on my desk waiting to be drank because of them.
So, yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I figured you would as soon as you got over and got recovered and everything.
Here's what I want to do, because I owe them a list of all the equipment, and I figured what is fitting is to be working on that list while drinking the scotch they bought me. So I promised myself I would not open the scotch until I started working on that list. So I'm forcing myself to hold off until that list is being developed.
Well, they got me that outstandingly beautiful kitchen knife, and I've already used it, so I didn't wait at all.
It was quite beautiful, I will tell you. That knife was quite beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome, though. It's a hazard to me and everyone around. I'm really kind of afraid because it's so sharp that I could easily hack off fingers before I knew what I was doing. So.
Well, you actually tried. When they gave it to you, you threatened me with it.
Yeah, well, there's the joy in getting a knife for a gift, right? If you can't threaten your boss, I mean, what else do you do?
All joking aside, it was really touching to be in a class that was that awesome, to have that many good students, and then to finish with such a strong familial friendship feeling to the class was really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got to say, that was probably one of my favorite classes ever. And to see some of our old and most favorite students that came to the class. So the question that is coming in is, yes, we will be running another MLSE class. And when? Next year.
Yeah, I was going to say not for another year, please.
Well, it's less than a year now, but it will be next year. It will be either February or March of 2017. We will announce it soon, but don't expect it when this podcast comes out. We will be working on the calendar for 2017 and then announcing it in the next few months.
Oof.
Yeah, if you can believe that. Did I just say that out loud?
Yes, so now we have to do it. Thanks very much, Chris.
So I guess this is the issue, right? Because let's look at what's happening. In June 6th through 8th, we're in Bristol, UK for an APSE class. That class literally has, I think, 4 or 5 more slots, and then it's full. It's sold out. In July 30th through August 2nd, we're at the APSE in Black Hat, Vegas. And that class is 78% full right now. So my suggestion is, if you want in on that, to get in there quickly. And then that is it for APSE.
That's it for the year.
Right? And now we have one more OSYNC class that is November 3rd and 4th in Dallas, Texas. But that is it. And I'm getting people emailing me saying, wait, what's this? I thought you always have 4 classes. And we've been saying this for the last, I think, almost year now, is that this year we're only doing 3 APSE classes because of MLSE.
Yeah, it wasn't just an empty threat, people.
It wasn't. We really meant it. This is not scarcity. We're not throwing in a last-minute APSE class somewhere. We're not surprising you with, hey, we decided to do one more because of popular demand. I swear to you, that's it. It's over. And then we have to wait to 2017. So if June 6th through 10 or July 30 through August 2nd don't work for you, then I would start looking at saving your time for February of 17, because that's when we'll probably do another APSE down in Orlando.
But of course, if you come to DEF CON, you will still have an opportunity to see the human hacker in person.
That's Michelle. And the sultry Asian, which is me.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense. We actually had a request, someone who wanted the sultry Asian to do some vishing. That's how the request came in.
I'm going to want to hear about that later.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We're now charging extra for the sultry Asian because she's unpopular demand. Okay, so that's our training. Now, we also have some other exciting things. So DEF CON, you mentioned that. We hired a guy who's he loves to make things, and he just creates things, and hardware hacking is one of his hobbies. And we have put him in a dark dungeon with one swinging light bulb and given him only 1 meal a day until he accomplishes the building of laser arrays and motion pads and lockpick boxes with all sorts of lights and funny things going on in them. And I'm not going to tell you much more, but that's for our Mission SE Impossible on Thursday at DEF CON. It's going to be awesome. Way better than last year. Really awesome. That's going to be a live sign up. We'll have info on that on the site, but you cannot sign up for that ahead of time. You have to be at DEF CON Thursday, walk in the room, put your name in the hat. We'll pick 10 to 12 people out, and that's who gets to compete.
Yeah, I imagine we'll probably do it like last year, right? They have to come see me personally, give me a hug, give me a speech about why they should be part of the Mission SE Impossible, and then we'll see.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think there should be some pain and torture involved.
Absolutely. Wouldn't be the SE Village without it.
Yeah, I agree. Then, of course, we have the SECTF, which, by the way, guys, this year, totally unbelievable. We have more signups than I've ever seen, ever. I mean, in doing this is our 7th year, never had this many signups. I mean, it's going to be hard to pick 10 to 12 folks that are going to compete, because not only are we getting signups, we're not getting the normal signups where people are like, I'm going to get in the booth drunk and I'm still going to own it. It's like people who seriously want to come and do SE. So it is going to be difficult to pick our 10 to 12 contestants for this year.
Well, the question is, are there videos? Because that was one of the things for extra credit, I believe.
There's only 3.
What?
Yes.
Weak
is what I said. Only 3. Now, we know that those 3 are good. Those people are going to probably be in. So, that leaves only, 7 or 8 slots left. So, out of the dozens of applicants, you better start getting your videos in. That's all I got to say.
Again, not a scarcity ploy.
No, not scarcity. People think that we're doing this as an SE gig, but it's really serious. And then, of course, we have the SECTF for kids. That is going to be blown out of the water this year. We have something really cool scheduled for them. And, of course, the speeches. Our CFP is now open. We are getting fill outs for the CFP. I think we have a handful of them already. You still have some time, but submit your speech if you want to be considered for that. We only have I think 6 to 8 slots open for that. So last year it was really difficult because we had to reject a lot of really good people. The CFP that they put in really was good, and we had to reject a lot of them because of the minimal amount of spots that we have. So, this year will probably be the same problem, but we do encourage you to still put it in because we're looking for those really dynamic speeches that we can have there.
Yeah, and the great thing is we are the human track at DEF CON, so this is a great way to kind of be seen and get out there and talk about your human exploits.
Yep, they're being recorded by DEF CON. They'll be on the DVD on the DEF CON YouTube channel. So it's all official. So it's not just, 5 of us in a room with a phone cam.
Like usual, yeah.
Like usual, That's how we usually run our stuff, Michelle. Phone cams and 5 of us in a room. And even though Dave's not here, we will say that we will be at Derby. He's still torturing me and not letting me know if he's going to let us teach the OSINT class at Derby. But if we are, then we will have that class. It's not on the site yet because we haven't been told, but we will be there running our polygraph challenge. There'll be an SE booth, and we may even have another special surprise, but we're working out with Derby yet what that may be. So we'll let you all know as that comes up. Okay, now let's talk about something that just kind of blows our mind, Michelle. You ready for mind blowing?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Bring it on.
So last year, about this time, we had a guy call me and say, hey, I had this idea. I want you to hack me. I want you to hack me. And I want you to do it all with SE, and there's no rules. You can do whatever you want to me. And I want to put it all on film and make a little show out of it.
Yeah, and that never happens.
Yeah. And we're like, well, I don't know if we're interested, sounds fun on paper, but, never really works out. And this guy just, no, it's really going to work out. So we talk about it as a team. We decide, okay, let's dox the guy. Let's do some OSINT on him and see what comes up. So we do, and we have 30 pages of material. I mean, we find everything about this guy. He's got a girlfriend. He's hiding from his family. He's got, all sorts of travel. He's buying things online. He's heavy on Twitter, Facebook. And we just started writing vectors that we think we can use on him. And we did. We phished him successfully. We vished him successfully. We did all sorts of stuff. The guy was amazed. He didn't think we'd get nearly as far because he was pretty security conscious. But we were able to do some pretty hairy things. And then we went to DEF CON, and he brought his film crew out. As Kevin Roose, and he sat us down, interviewed us, and then he said, I really still don't believe it, even though you did it. So we offered to do some things live. Now, he put that thing on a video, and right now, as of today, from what I've seen, it's up to about 4 million views. And we thought we should get Kevin on the podcast, and we should talk to him about how that's affected his life, how what we did to him, how that's changed his outlook on the way he handles things. And let's see if it's affected him at all and what we can learn from it from the good side of the fence, right? So here we are trying to help companies and people protect themselves. And here's a perfect example and see what it's done for him. Kevin, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. So before we had you on, Michelle and I were just talking a little bit about last year when you approached us and had this crazy idea to ask a group of hackers to take all the gloves off and basically look into your life. Now, before we get into the results, what motivated you to actually want to be the target yourself?
Well, I've spent a lot of time reporting on hacks. I mean, I'm a tech reporter. I've covered the Sony Pictures hack, the JP Morgan hack, the Ashley Madison hack. And one thing that I heard over and over again as I was reporting on this stuff is that companies were doing bug bounty programs and bringing in sort of white hats to try to hack them because this was, the way that they were figuring out where their vulnerabilities were and where they could make themselves more safe. And I'm a little bit paranoid. I think pretty reasonably so. But I thought, well, maybe I have all these vulnerabilities that I don't know about. Maybe I'm not as secure as I think I am, and I'm probably an above average user of most security tools. But I thought nobody's perfect, and so what if I could do that for myself? What if I could do the personal sort of version of a penetration test and have hackers try to hack me and tell me what I was missing and how I could improve?
Did you feel like you were a relatively security aware person? Where did you feel like you were on the general spectrum of, just the general population?
I mean, I would have put myself in the 90th percentile. I use a password manager. I use like PGP for some of my email. I've spent a lot of time thinking about security, as a reporter and as someone who works in the media, I'm pretty vulnerable to this stuff. Thought maybe I didn't have everything down, but maybe 90% of it I had.
So maybe talk about that a little bit, because I'm curious. How long you been a reporter for?
About 10 years.
So 10 years, and you've always reported on tech news?
No, I was a religion reporter first, and then I was a business reporter. I covered Wall Street and wrote a book about young Wall Street bankers. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I started covering tech.
So definitely 3 or 4 years, you've seen, I mean, the last 24 months alone have been scary as heck. So you've seen, in the last 3 or 4 years, you've seen definitely a lot of the major breaches that have occurred since then.
Totally. I mean, I sort of broke the story of the Sony hack in 2014. And that was sort of my first big, story that I had covered extensively in sort of this realm. And it was terrifying. I mean, I was reporting on this stuff and going through some of these emails that were hacked into and looking at all these documents from inside Sony, and a light just kind of went up on my head. And I said, like, if this happened to me, this would be the worst thing ever. Like, I would rather have someone steal the keys to my house, like my physical house, and rummage around in my drawers and go in my closet and take all my electronics than like give them 10 minutes with my email account. It really did drive home to me how much higher stakes digital security is than even physical security, for me at least.
You can replace those things, right? Someone steals your electronics. Those are replaceable, but your identity is really hard to replace.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just so much more interconnected. I mean, someone who steals your TV, doesn't learn about your secrets from 5 years ago or your secret grudges at work or something. Like, all of this stuff is so interconnected that basically, if you have one foot in the door, you have so much destructive potential.
So we know your background as a reporter. We know you came from. Now you had this concept and this idea, and you wanted to cover both gambits. So it wasn't just social engineering from our side, but you also wanted to allow someone to try to technically hack you too.
Exactly. I wanted to see both sides of the coin. So what could you guys do to me through social engineering? Which kind of vulnerabilities did I have on that side? And then I actually wanted to get someone who's super technical, who is this guy, Dan Tendler, to just go all out, to like use every tool that he could find to like hack into my computer, set up a shell, do as much damage as he could. Because in reality, like, there are more people capable of social engineering than sort of skilled technical hacking. Maybe not that they're great at it, but it's at least a lower barrier to entry on the technical side. Yeah. But if you're a technically skilled person, like, there's a whole other series of things that become possible.
So to expound on Michelle's question, when you decided to do this, did you think, this will be a great story, but they're probably not going to get too far with me because I'm pretty secure?
I thought, I had kind of a false confidence. I thought, maybe there would be some things around the edges. Maybe my eBay account from 5 years ago that I just haven't touched. Like, maybe they'll be able to hack that. Or like, maybe they'll be able to figure out my social security number and get some minor account of mine compromised or something like that. But I thought, like, the core, like, the stuff that I have two-factor authentication on, the stuff that I take very good care to protect.
I get that. I think all of us, even when we're in the security industry, we can easily fall into that kind of thinking because you feel like you've done the things to protect yourself. And it's really hard to pen test yourself.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, like, everyone would be able to, you'd be able to sort of get audited on a regular basis by people like you guys who would come in and say, like, here's where you're vulnerable. Now, obviously, that's out of reach for most people, but I do think that this is really important for me. It just taught me that I might be 90th percentile, but even 90th percentile is pretty vulnerable.
Well, there's still a 10% vulnerability, right?
Right.
So let's talk about some of the things that we're interested in, because I think this will be learning lessons as we talk more about how this affected you. So some of the things that we had picked up from the social engineering side is, like, on your Twitter, a lot of tweets about Uber. And in one tweet, you actually took a screenshot of your cell phone with a tweet about Uber. So we knew at that time that you used T-Mobile and what kind of phone you used, because the screenshot was like your front page of your phone. So we knew that it was an iPhone with T-Mobile service at that time.
Well, that's actually funny because I don't have Teams. So I think I know what happened there, which is that one of my friends built a tool to like create funny custom sort of fake Twitter notifications. So, like if you wanted to like make a joke about people on Twitter talking about something, you would like plug in this thing, it would generate an image that looked like a home screen image. So that's what that was. That wasn't actually my cell phone, which I think threw you guys for a little bit of a loop.
It did, because we went down that path, right, thinking you had T-Mobile and found out you had Verizon, so made the assumption that you just switched. At some point you switched from T-Mobile to Verizon. But that's interesting to find out now that it was not actually a switch. You never had T-Mobile.
Yep, it was all a ruse.
Nice. See what you did there. Then one of the other things which was interesting is you talked about some of the things you do, like going to Japantown anime convention, just knowing some geolocations of where you were. But then probably one of the ones that was a big one for us is you took a picture of your dog and you did something really smart. You never mentioned your dog's name, ever. And I don't know if you do that on purpose, but that's something that we definitely like to use when we formulate attacks, because the more personal information you have on someone, the easier it is to gain trust. But someone in your Twitter feed responded with, "Oh, I hope Lenny's feeling better." That's how we got your dog's name, because of the conversation.
Right. Now, why is that a particularly valuable piece of information for you guys?
Now, we didn't follow this attack vector, but a lot of times if, like, let's say we can find out what veterinarian you use. When formulating a phishing email, we can email you something like, "Oh, we have this rabies update certificate you need," or "We need you to schedule this appointment," or we can call you from that veterinarian's office. "Hey, we want to do a checkup on Lenny. We need to send you a form to fill out." Anything that can cause you to trust us enough to open up an attachment that would then have some kind of malware or virus on it. And we want to build that trust through knowledge of you, or knowledge of your family, your pets, or things that you already trust, things that you wouldn't expect a stranger to know about you.
Got it.
All right, so if I call and I say, "Hey, this is your veterinarian's office. I want to talk about your dog," you may believe me, but it's way more believable if I say, "Hey, this is your veterinarian's office. I want to talk to you about Lenny. We have this form we need you to fill out on him." And now, because I know the name, there's an easier way to build trust with the target at that.
Got it.
But there was something interesting. On the picture, we were able to zoom in on Lenny's dog tag, and that gave us a clear picture of your home address.
That was amazing to me, by the way. That that my camera phone is good enough to take a high enough resolution photo that you can blow it up and see an address on a dog tag. But also, I felt a little bit better recently because Chrissy Teigen, who's John Legend's wife and the sort of famous supermodel, was tweeting about how something similar had happened to her. She put out like a cookbook or a magazine article or something where there was a picture of her cat, and the cat's tag had her phone number on it. And so she unwittingly published this thing that had her cell phone number on it. And she got like hundreds of calls from people who, wanted to talk to her. And I sort of felt justified. Like, I might be an idiot, but at least like I'm not the only one. And then, I don't have millions of fans wanting my cell phone number.
See, I don't look at that and go, "Well, you or her, you're not idiots." This is something that, like you said, a normal person wouldn't think about. They're not looking at the picture and going, "Hey, can I grab that, zoom in?" We had to reverse the negative colors so we saw the outline of the address, and then basically letter by letter try to spell it out and use that to get your address.
But you're right, in the age of selfies, I mean, none of us think about those kinds of things. There was actually a recent article where I think it was a couple announced their engagement, and in the very corner, they had inadvertently left the result of a pregnancy exam. So same thing, they're just taking a selfie, they're just, they're announcing their happy new status and inadvertently left this, and so they got some comments back about, "Oh, is this why you guys are getting married?" And all of us do this all the time.
Well, that makes you feel a little bit better.
Really, Kevin, it's not about being stupid. And this was the thing that we really honestly, we said this to you when we met. None of this was because you were dumb, right? This wasn't "Oh, look how dumb Kevin was here. He did this really horrible thing." You made it difficult, right? We had to work. We had to work on you. So there are some people who put everything in the world out there. You were not one of those people. So we had to really work. But that was a big tell for us because once we had your address, we can then figure out, what internet providers service that area, what phone providers service that area. That enabled us to build a list of potential vectors that we can use and vendors that we can use to spoof as in either phishing or vishing. So that was kind of big. Then we did find the information on your girlfriend, which was another big one because that was something that you weren't making very public. And we were able to use her name in a lot of our vishing with our female agents here. We were able to use her in a lot of our vishing work against you. So that was kind of a nice find from an attacker standpoint.
I mean, it's really funny you say that because this whole thing has been very funny, between me and my girlfriend. She doesn't work in media. She doesn't have a sort of public facing job. And she's been very paranoid for as long as I've known her. Like, she was the first person I ever saw who had a piece of tape over the camera on their laptop. And I mocked her mercilessly for this and called her, a tinfoil hat person or are the Fed spying on you while you, watch Netflix or something. And she has had the best time saying, I told you so
Yep.
about this. For a week after this story came out, she was just, everything she had been saying was totally vindicated.
Well, you tell her, congratulations, she won.
Exactly.
And I think the other part that's difficult too, Kevin, is that you are a public person. And so you have to really balance sharing information about yourself and really having the appearance of openness and being open to people approaching you and stories approaching you versus what you need to protect personally. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could ever go off the grid. I think that's the hard part is for most of us, actually, not just media people, but for all of us, we want to make ourselves generally available for, opportunities and things like that. So we have websites and we have Twitter accounts with our email addresses on them. And I think, that's the hard balancing act is how do you maintain privacy, but also, for those of us that part of our job is to sort of live in public, how do you do that without compromising too much?
I think, well, let's get to that because that's a really good question. Once we went down the list more with the OSINT, we developed, I think it was two first, initial spearfish. One was from your university asking you to come speak, and one was from American Express saying you had a bill that was due. Both of them were fish that we were hoping you would see and click, and we found out quickly that for one of them, we were using an email address that you don't use too often. I think when you read it, you said you may have clicked it if you saw that one, but we had an email address that was kind of not being used too often. That really made us say we need to find out what email address is attached to all your present social media. And that's what led us down the path of calling these different service providers like Time Warner and Comcast and digging to find out who you used for your internet provider, pretending to be your girlfriend. And that's kind of where we were able to find a lot of information about your electric company, your phone company, internet providers, all using your girlfriend's name. And then this was one that I think that was a big one to talk about with folks was we found a website, and I won't say it here, but the website that we found that had a list of your personal Gmail address as the contact info. It was not privatized. And that is the email address we started to use with all of the different attacks when we started to call these companies and say, oh, is this Gmail address? Is that the one that's on there? And getting confirmation from those things, which helped us to then build a better profile on where you were and who you were using, which really helped as far as from an attacker standpoint.
Yeah, I've subsequently changed that page. So it no longer has my name email address on it.
And then I think the big one was after that is when we saw digging through your Twitter that you had posted a FedEx screenshot of a FedEx in transit package from something you ordered from Alibaba. And for us, that was our in, right? We wrote a fish. We got a domain that looked like it was Alibaba. We wrote a fish that basically said you needed to fill out a customs form to allow this piece of product in through customs. And to prove that we knew we wanted to go to the right address, and this was really a bonus for us. We didn't know how Alibaba works. But when you go to Alibaba and you type in a email to log in, if the email address doesn't exist on their system, it says this account does not exist. But if the email address exists, even if you have the wrong password, it says incorrect password, you have 5 attempts left. So because the message changed for us, that meant we knew we had the right address. And we knew that it was that Gmail address that we found. So we sent you the Alibaba spearfish to that Gmail address, which got clicked very, very fast.
Yeah, I fell for that one with my thinker. That was good.
So let's stop there before we get to the actual DEF CON piece. So you mentioned some of the things you've changed, like you went and you added privatization to your domains that you own. That's a big piece. We tell people that. Everyone kind of doesn't do that because it's like an extra $4.99 a year, and they're like, yeah, I'm not sure if I need it. Why did you feel that was so important after this to make sure that all your domains were privatized?
You know, it was like pretty obvious, like that was your way in. And so I wanted to make sure I wasn't inadvertently giving away that stuff. You know, I made some tweaks to like my sort of public, like white pages accounts and stuff like that. Like there are places I don't have the most unique name, but it's pretty clear when you search me that it's me. And so, you know, it's not as good as if I were like John Smith or something, but I feel like I had to take some steps to just reduce the amount of stuff leaking out there about me. And I'm very careful now. I don't tweet photos of my neighborhood. I don't put, you know, my address. Like if I'm posting something that came in the mail, like I blur out the address on those things. I've learned some pitfalls as well as some steps I can take to correct them.
Yeah, great. So you answered the question that I was just about to ask, which was, has this affected how you handle your online social media presence? And from what you just said, it has. Like, do you feel that it's negatively impacted your ability to be a public persona by now having to think a lot about what you tweet or what you Facebook before you do it?
Yes, I feel like my ability to like live in public in the way that I used to was a little bit dampened by just knowing how many pitfalls are out there. But like, you know, I stopped sharing that kind of stuff and I didn't miss it. Like it wasn't deleterious to my lifestyle. And it felt like the sort of alternative is that you just become more careful about what you're putting out there, not just security wise, but like you don't want to be like totally unfiltered on the internet, which for a while I kind of was. So I just have become a lot more conscious of different kinds of risk. And so I think that, you know, after this story, I took the time to really set up my privacy settings very carefully on Facebook, just to sort of know that when I'm posting something, I'm either posting it publicly, in which case I know that, you know, I want to be cautious about that, or I'm posting it to a group of people who I know and trust.
Is that sort of the biggest change then, Kevin? Is that you've made changes to social media or the kinds of messaging that you put out there? Did it affect you in other ways as well? Personally, interpersonally, just how you communicate with people that you know even?
Yeah, I mean, I've started, after you guys social engineered me, I did call my provider, you know, my phone company, you know, my internet company, and sort of either set passwords on accounts that hadn't had passwords on them or changed the passwords on accounts that did have passwords on them, made it clear to them that, you know, unless I gave them this password, they should not let anyone make changes to this account. So I did a bit of like offense. But other than that, I mean, I think the biggest changes have just been around my awareness and maybe looking a little harder at the email before I click on, you know, the link, or hovering over the link to make sure it's going to the same site that it says. So it's little things like that that just sort of add up throughout the day.
People are going to think that we paid you to say all this because this is basically the message that we always are talking about. You know, is this thinking a little bit more about what you put out there? And people sometimes don't believe us. And what you said to me was wonderful that you said it. We haven't had this conversation before today, is that you made those changes and you didn't miss it. So you made those changes to your life and what you tweeted and what you Facebooked, and you're not sitting there going, man, I miss those days when I was oblivious and didn't know. It hasn't affected your popularity. It hasn't affected your ability to be a public persona. And you're still out there talking with your fans and communicating with the world, but you're just doing it in a more secure way.
Totally. And I think a lot of people learn these lessons the hard way, right? Like Chrissy Teigen cat photo or something like that. And so did I. And lucky that my hard way was just having you guys hack me and not someone who actually wanted to do me, you know, lots of damage. But I think, you know, in general, like security is more about consciousness than effort, at least in my experience. Like it doesn't take a long time to do this stuff. It's just, you have to know that it has to be done, right? Like you have to know that the it's easy to lock the door, but you have to know that the door is unlocked first.
And that's a good point. So you have to have that education first on what to do and then actually take the time to do it.
I mean, it does sometimes, like, there are annoying parts of it, like, especially on the sort of technical side with, I now have, like, a physical security key that I, like, plug into my USB port to log into some of my accounts, in lieu of just a regular two-factor thing. And that's a little annoying. Sometimes, like, when I want to check my email, I, like, have to go dig around for my security key. It might add 30 seconds to it. That's a point of friction. Like, I have to think that security providers will get better at making those processes easier for people, because I think the only hope for sort of mass market security is that this stuff either happens automatically. I'm a tech reporter. I'm very literate in this stuff. I feel like I'm more likely than the average person to seek it out. But my parents or my girlfriend or my friends who aren't tech reporters, like, they all have to, so that it's acceptable to them too.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because, like you said, especially we talk about parents or grandparents, they're targets right now for scammers, and the fixes are not easy for someone who's not very computer literate to implement.
Yeah, I mean, do you think I'm going to teach my 95-year-old grandfather to use PGP? Like, no, he just wants to check his email. So to some extent, I think when we focus on grandparents, like, we ignore the fact that it's like all of us, right? Like, I know 28-year-olds who are not entirely savvy about this stuff. And even those of us who are savvy get, hacked anyway, as I found out. So it's not just like an issue of grandparents getting scammed, although they're certainly vulnerable. It's like there's like a basic universal awareness that we need to reach somehow.
I think the big question there is, does your 95-year-old grandpa actually have email?
He does.
That's amazing.
He sends email and checks his stocks. He's pretty literate.
That's got to be the most amazing grandpa ever. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, what would you say is sort of your biggest surprise from this experiment? Because clearly congratulations on putting it out there, because I think any of us would be really hard pressed to say, do what you will. So congratulations on that. But what would you say is sort of your biggest shocker, I guess?
I think it's a combination of things. I think the most shocking part came from sort of you guys and the hack that you did on me and the social engineering of my phone company live on TV. Like, that was pretty wild. And I guess the sort of depressing lesson from that is that, like, it's not just about my own security, like, awareness. Like, I can be perfect. I could theoretically be perfect and perfectly secure and never expose myself on any vector. And yet, like, if the companies that are safeguarding my data and my information are not using the proper security practices, like, I'm still very vulnerable. So it's not just that I have to safeguard my own stuff. It's like I have to make sure everyone else is safeguarding my stuff too. And I think that was the shocker, is just thinking about the, like, second order consequences of this. Like, who else has my information? I give it out so easily, and not the individuals, but the company. And so I think I really had to do some soul searching about, like, who knows my social security number? Who knows my credit card number? What are their policies like? And how do I make sure that they're taking good care of my data?
Yeah, and that's an interesting point because, like what we did then at DEF CON, and we're glad that we saved that to do with you live, because that's something we do all the time here in our company. We use background noises, right? So to describe what we did, for those of you who haven't seen the video, we set up a vishing call to Kevin's cell phone provider as him. We spoofed his cell phone number, calling as his girlfriend, saying that we needed to get some information about the account. So that way we can get the email address and get the bill and other information for a loan we were filling out for. In the process, we played background noises of a baby crying, because the pretext was the girlfriend just had the baby. They're applying for a loan for a house they're going to buy because they're getting married, and we need to have this information. And in the process of that call is where we found out that this agent from the phone company was kind enough that she wanted to help, that she was not only going to give us the information we needed, but then help set up a password, set up another account password, set up an account with a fake social security number that we made up, and then even allow us to order phones and other things that we didn't do that, but that we could have at that point in time, as ordered some products and have them shipped wherever we wanted. So knowing that, and that's the interesting part, is that showed no vulnerability on your part. The fact that we used the information that we found from you social media wise, like your girlfriend and things like that, that's one thing. But even if you didn't have that out there and we were still able to obtain that information somehow, that vulnerability did not exist because of Kevin Roose. That vulnerability existed because the way the phone company had their customer support. And in that sense, I even take this a step further and say, I hate to call it a vulnerability because it was kindness from a customer service agent trying to help a brand new mother with a crying baby in the background.
Right. I mean, that's the flip side of it is like, I can imagine an instance in which that's not a hack. Like I actually do need for my girlfriend to be able to get access to my account in an emergency. And in those moments, you might be rightfully annoyed that they wouldn't just like let you in. And so I think that's what you guys are doing. That's the whole question is like, to what extent do we want to systematize and lock down these systems, and how much variability should we allow into them for, fringe events or emergencies?
And then how do you prove the fringe event or emergency? Because again, this was not a real baby. It was a baby sound in the background, yet it sounded so real to the agent that she kept saying, do you want to go and feed your child? Do you want to just take a moment and comfort her and then we can talk? Because it was so real to the agent that she was just trying to help a brand new mom.
Totally.
By the way, I want to just congratulate you too. From what we saw, this video has gotten over 3 or 4 million views from what I'm seeing, maybe even more at this point.
Yeah, it's doing pretty well.
Really, congratulations on that. Never expected it to go just millions and millions of views. I saw it quoted and requoted on dozens of different websites and articles. People are still blogging and talking about it. I'm constantly seeing information and news about that article being re-talked about. So I would say the majority of what I'm seeing is very positive. It was a positive experience for people to watch that and be like, whoa, that was way more simple. I think when they think of hacking, they don't think of it as being something that is so simple. They think of it being very complex. And that opened a lot of people's eyes to, man, this is serious, because that was way too easy.
Totally.
So what do you think the main takeaway is? Like for the average person listening to this that doesn't have the freedom to just call a bunch of hackers and say, hey, hack me for fun and we'll make a show out of it. What do you think the main takeaway is for the everyday person?
I think part of the risk of doing this show is that I would come off being sort of alarmist. Like everyone should be in a bunker with, encrypted everything. And I don't think that's the case, because as a guy that I consulted with in the show, Morgan Marquis-Bois said, like, it is exceedingly unlikely for the average person that a skilled technical hacker or a skilled social engineer will come after you. Like, most people just aren't that interested. And so I think for the average person, what you can do is sort of like do the equivalent of not leaving your door unlocked when you leave the house. Like, put two-factor authentication on your accounts. Like, make sure you're not tweeting out pictures of your address. Do sort of like the bread and butter security stuff. But I don't know that most people need to go overboard with this stuff. And I think the bigger question is how providers like Apple and Samsung and Google and Facebook and all the AT&T and T-Mobile and Verizon and Comcast, all the companies that do act as sort of a mass safeguard of information, like how those companies can strengthen their practices. Because for the average person, you are much more likely to be hacked as part of a giant hack of some other system or database than you are someone come after you individually.
I heard a guy once say something really interesting along the lines of this. He said, we all know that there's probably some really deadly people out there, people that could just walk up and hit you and kill you. There's some ninjas out there, like Michelle. She's like a ninja, right? And she can hit you and she can kill you. It's true, right, Michelle? It's true. So don't deny it. Okay. We don't walk around our backyard in the defensive pose all the time, waiting for a ninja to pop out and punch you. Most likely not going to be the case unless you're like Chuck Norris or something like that. So we know it exists. not everyone has to be deathly afraid of it. So I do agree with you. Like when we talk about targeted attack, someone has to be interested in you to target an attack. But I think one thing you said that was really, really important for the average person is the education piece, just knowing what attacks are happening out there, just knowing what phishing is happening right now, what vishing is happening right now, what kind of scams are occurring in the market right now. That kind of awareness can at least make you a little more aware that, hey, I just got this weird phone call, said they were the IRS. I don't remember having any bad back taxes. I'm not going to answer these questions. I'm going to first check and make sure that this is really about me before you just give over information because you've been educated.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense.
You got some guts, man. Putting it out there after it was all said and done.
I did get a lot of phishing attempts in the sort of days after the video came out. I think I counted 7 in the first week. People saying, well, if he was dumb enough to fall for it once.
Right.
But luckily, I think I was a little more aware this time.
A little more aware, for sure.
You know, and that's just mean, really. Seriously, like he's put himself out there. He did it for the good of, you know, the public and education, and now people are trying to take advantage of it. Come on.
Right. I mean, one other thing I've learned from this whole experience is that you shouldn't go around bragging about how secure you are because people just want to mess with you.
That is 100% true. You know, we learned that lesson many, many years ago. Anytime you brag about something, like if you walk around and say, I'm the best fighter in the world, what's going to happen? Someone is going to come up and lay you out flat. Don't do it. I agree with that 100%. So, Kevin, with legitimacy, if people want to follow you and not phish you, if they want to find out more about you, where can they go to do that?
Well, my address is 123 Main Street. My social security number is 555. No, they can go to my website at kevinroose.com and also on Twitter at Kevin Roose and Facebook at Kevin Roose, ROASE.
So, and guys, seriously, don't try to hack the guy anymore. I mean, hasn't he been through enough? I mean, just watch the video and point and laugh and be nice. Come on, be nice. Kevin, one question we always ask people come on the show because we have a lot of avid readers that are listeners. And it doesn't have to be anything about hacking or anything about security. It doesn't really matter. Are there any books that you've read that you would recommend? Anything that you think somebody that has an intellectual mind would enjoy reading that you liked?
Well, I haven't read any good books about hacking lately. I have been rereading a book called The Second Machine Age, which many of your listeners might have already read, but I had read it a few years ago and put it down back up again. It's about sort of, you know, automation and the coming era of robot superintelligence and what it's going to do to not only the labor market, but sort of society in general. It's really great.
Awesome. And you know who wrote it, or?
Yes, by Andrew McAfee, but two MIT professors, Andrew McAfee and Eric Brynjolfsson.
I'll get a Amazon link and put it on the show notes. I can't thank you enough, first of all, for the experience. It was very fascinating, and it was a lot of fun for us. And the video you made afterward is superbly done, so I can't thank you enough for that.
Well, thank you, guys, and thank you for not ruining my life in a permanent way. I really appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome. And I want to thank you, too, for the 18 phones that we ordered from your account that my employees are all using.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to help.
Really appreciate that. You know, that's really helped. I'm kidding, of course.
I thought we said we weren't going to be mean. Come on.
Darn. I'm sorry. I forgot. No. No, and then thanks for coming on the podcast and reliving it and talking about it. I feel that sometimes if we talk about these things a little more openly like we did, like you have here, that we can bring some awareness to folks and they can think about it a little bit more. So I really appreciate you making the time to come on and do that.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
We will talk to you again, Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin.
Man, Kevin, he's just a nice, all-around nice guy.
And he is a braver soul than I could ever be. I can't even imagine asking someone to do what we did. So
I just wouldn't want someone to do it just because you never know what they find.
Exactly. I mean, you know, not that we're all like hidden criminal pasts or anything, but still.
I mean, you are, but I mean, you know.
I've got the knife. I've still got the knife.
Oh, I meant never. No. You just that one thing you did that's embarrassing that you don't want anyone to know about. You just don't want someone to dig that up somehow.
No, just I am not issuing a challenge. Golly.
No, we are not. We are not challenging any soul at all. We are. Don't think you can do it and then come on the podcast. We won't even invite you on.
No, but seriously, the man is brave. I
Brave.
just I can't imagine having done what he did
No.
for the sake of education.
And then talking about it as openly as he is, I really do feel that that's the most important thing we can do to help people, because there is no way to fix it, right? There's no way to stop what we did.
Absolutely.
There's some things that could have slowed us down, like not having your dog tag on Twitter and not tweeting about your orders from Alibaba. And
yeah, but a lot of that was not even stuff that he put out there on his own. It's like his providers and his friends and his networks. Those are things that no one can get a handle on.
And that's it. That's the point, is that you can't control what other people do. So sometimes you can just be as secure as you can be, and then the education helps you save yourself from the rest.
Yeah.
Man, awesome. Michelle, I got to say that this may have been the most in-line podcast. Like, we started, we talked about training, we talked about conferences, we got the guest on.
We're almost on time.
Like, we're literally 1 minute from being on time. And there was no Bruce Hornsby and very little banter.
So you're placing the blame squarely on Dave's shoulders.
I didn't say it. You said it, but I'm offering that out there to the audience, maybe.
I have to say, though, it's a little bit more lonely without the Dave banter. Just the two of us, just like huddled in a room doing a podcast. I miss Dave and I miss Ping, and we need to have him back soon.
I will say this. We don't laugh nearly as much without Dave.
Absolutely.
He does bring something. Hornsby and all.
Hopefully he'll be back from his trip to the tropics next month.
Seriously. I mean, he better not be on a 2-month vacation. That's all I got to say.
Or working, for that matter.
Yeah, only I'm allowed to do that. Okay, what do we got? If you want to follow us, we have The Sultry Asian at twitter.com/sultryasian. We have Human Hacker, which is me. Yep, Human Hacker. We have our IRC, if you're still on IRC. It's a little more active lately. It's irc.freenode.net on channel social-engineer. Our website's corporate-social-engineer.com, and the .org is social-engineer.org. Oh, I also forgot our corporate Twitter, which is SOC Engineer Inc. If you like the intro and outro music, that is Clutch, Gone Cold. You can find out more about them online. And, of course, we recommend that you buy their album because, they're awesome. I think that's about it. Right, Michelle?
I think that is it for now.
Until next month. See ya.
Swan boats and daisy chains. Can't seem to recall any given name. I see the footprints, how they come, how they go. Was that only a moment or many years ago? My heart is gone,